Had one of those moments, maybe you're speaking in public, maybe you're, I don't know, probably not. Maybe you're speaking to your family. Maybe you're saying grace at the dinner table, something along those lines. And you say something that the minute it pops out, you just know that you're going to get absolutely shellacked for saying that sentence, that phrase, that whatever. And in your mind, you're like, oh man, that is not how that should have said. That is what I said, but I'm going to take a beat down for this. Well, Maxine Waters, Democratic Representative Maxine Waters, who is 83 years old, she had one of those moments where she told homeless people gathering at an event to get Section 8 vouchers because they don't have housing, because they don't live in housing. They are unhoused and they are living in tents outside. Because they're in that scenario, they went to this event that Maxine Waters is speaking at, and she tells them to go home, and they wig out. Now, all right, so we've all had those moments. So you understand what we're saying here is, oh, yeah, that just came across. She meant, hey, there's no more vouchers here. You guys got to leave. There's nothing more we can accomplish here today. But she says, go home. So we're going to talk about a little bit about that. But what the other interesting thing is she recognized right off the bat, oh, the optics on this. This is not going to look good. This is not going to put me in good light. And it didn't. And so she tried to tell the newspaper that was covering it, yeah, you're going to cause a lot of disinformation by not giving the full background and the full story on this one. By not giving the full history. It's going to look really bad for me. So I would ask that you not run this story. So then, of course, we're covering it, right? Why wouldn't we? Okay. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Sean Reynolds. I own a couple of real estate companies, and I read interesting news that reasonable people find interesting. All right, let's do this one. Democratic Republican or Representative Democrat Republican. That makes no sense at all. Democratic Representative Maxine Waters, 83, sparks fury by telling homeless crowd to go home when they crashed LA emergency shelter event in search of housing vouchers. Okay, so just a crazy story, and it was interesting that she recognized, oh yeah, that isn't going to go over well. Me saying go home. The Los Angeles Times, which reported on the incident, claimed that the 83-year-old progressive congresswoman tried to stop the outlet from publishing the story by warning its investigative reporter they would hurt themselves and the community. Waters had reportedly been trying to subdue a riled-up group of people who had come to a nonprofit advocacy group's event, misled by a social media post into believing that they could obtain Section 8 vouchers for permanent subsidized housing by going to said event. They couldn't. They had been told, I think like a week earlier, hey, come back on Tuesday. They're back on Tuesday looking for their vouchers. And then they're told, hey, go home. You need to go home, by Maxine Waters. Fathers and Mothers Who Care. That's the group which opened its South Los Angeles office to help California's homeless group get emergency shelter, found itself swamped with hundreds of people who were frustrated and growing unruly. On Friday, Waters told the crowd, you cannot get Section 8 vouchers here. Later, she told them to go home, and that's when the fury broke out. We don't got no home. That's why we're here. What home we going to go to? One person in the crowd yelled. Well, those are both very reasonable questions, and I guess the answer is there isn't one, and that's why you're at this event. So others attempted to turn Waters' attention to how many people were already gathered there and had been for hours. Obviously, this is an event that went wildly sideways. You got a major political figure showing up. She says something, and the crowd is just like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? And for so much of this current administration's, what they've got going on, you just see story after story after story of the most awkward optics ever. I mean, I've got podcasts like these for days because people just say stuff. They say shit that doesn't make any sense. And it comes out, and then you've got cover up. Like, you know what? It's going to harm you as the reporter. How's it going to harm a reporter by bringing this story out? It's going to harm you, and it's going to harm the community. Well, the damage has already been done, unfortunately, Maxine. The damage is already done. You caused it by saying what you did, and by also not getting all these people vouchers that it was said that they were going to. Now, they did say that it was a mistake on that there was a mix-up with the social media post. Okay, that sucks. I mean, just all around, this is just it's a disaster. Others attempted to turn Waters' attention to show how many people were already gathered there. Nothing more is going to happen here today, Waters said, waving her arms. So, Miss Maxine, you need to work with me. People are there to get help. I can't blame them. They're asking their political figures, hey, we need housing here. We need Section 8. Go home. Not what they came to hear, right? She then erupted at an activist who confronted her on the failings of California's housing system, the video the Times shows. Excuse me, there's nobody in Washington who works for their people any fucking harder than I do. I don't want to hear this. No, 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 Waters said angrily. Ugh, dropping the F-bomb. Oof. Wow. So you're telling people to go home, and then you're saying, I work harder than anybody else here. Let's see what she says specifically. There's nobody in Washington who works for their people any fucking harder than I do. I don't normally swear, but I think in this case, because I'm quoting somebody, it's acceptable. Because now we're dropping the F-bomb over something that probably isn't the case. Does she work the hardest to empower people to better their lives and get out of living on the streets? I don't know. Is anybody making a difference right now? California, I mean, it's just absolute train wreck, right? Skid Row. I mean, everybody knows about Skid Row just being, oof, yeah, don't go there. Might not make it out. She added, Maxine Waters added, what do you think I do every day when asked for more cooperation with the community? Well, that isn't the statement that you make. What do you think I do every day? Don't ask that question because they're going to tell you, sit on your ass, nothing, take your paycheck, and that's about it. Go to McDonald's. We don't know what you do with your day every day, nor do we care. We need those vouchers right now, and you're telling us to go home. Not good. What do you do every day? I'm still on the damn street, a woman yelled. They don't care. And you know what? Let's be reasonable. If I was a person that was unhoused going to this, whatever it is, event, and told me to go home, I'd get a little worked up too. But it's just part of the system, right? The system has failed, and especially in California, it has wildly failed people. But right now, there's a massive push, cities all across the United States, to basically just clear out the homeless encampments. Those are the optics. These are the new optics that we're doing something about the homeless project. But the thing is you know, without creating more housing, without putting people inside, you're just moving them around. And if you're okay, you know, just moving them around, that's one thing, but it's not really a solution. And you're just going to make these people more upset, and you're kind of just stirring up the beehive, right? And they'll just go somewhere else. She pointed out to the frustrated the crowd, the money that you got thus far came from me in Washington, D.C. Okay, but they're asking for housing, so they don't have the money that they need. They need something else, and they need those Section 8 vouchers right now. And they're not getting what they were promised. And then they were told, hey, you should go home. And then the reporter is told, don't cover that. That's not going to go well. It's not going to be a good end to this story. I will continue to work. I will get the information. There are no more vouchers today, Waters said before leaving. A voice can be heard calling after her. There were never any vouchers. So let's just take a quick watch of the video. Let's just see what this looks like. I mean, it's got to be entertaining, right?
Yesterday is when I saw people standing on the street and they thought they could get Section 8 vouchers here.
Right.
You cannot get Section 8 vouchers here.
But who put that information?
Section 8 vouchers is a long line. We are fighting in Washington in something called the Build Back Better program. I put $25 billion that we're fighting to give people more Section 8. Now the money that is available is for the absolute homeless under the emergency program. And that's what you started signing up for today. But because it could not be organized in a way, the workers that we forced to come down here from Lhasa and place to take the applications, they have put down their laptops and they are gone. There are no more applications.
Did they move locations, Maxine? Because I'm hearing one is on Wilshire. Did they move another location where they're taking apps? Is there any more locations than this one?
No, it might have been just so many people out here.
1 minute. I want everybody to go home. And I want
We don't got no home. Okay. That's why we here. Miss Miss Waters, get home. We gonna go too.
Yeah.
just a moment. Just a moment. Nothing is going to happen here today. Nothing is going to happen anymore today.
So what about
But
all these names?
what we're gonna well, that's what give
All right, so you can see that how that kind of went down. She's explaining a lot of stuff. I'm not making excuses for her, but still, it looks terrible. Hey, why don't you go home? You mean my tent on the side of 7th Avenue and whatever? Wilshire? Brutal, right? I blame those, this is what Maxine Waters came up with. I blame those who have the money that we have sent from the federal government who have not been able to communicate properly and to provide the services that we worked so hard for, she said. And somebody else basically said there were never any vouchers. And it seems like that is probably the case. So you got no vouchers. You brought a whole bunch of people to an event. They were signing up for other things that don't really help them out right now. Who knows? So you've literally got the blind leading the blind on an event like this, right? Oh, there's no more vouchers. There weren't any vouchers. Go home. We don't have a home. Train wreck, right? The Times had spoken to a homeless woman who was at the Friday event and said Waters told her to come back the following Tuesday, apparently still under the impression she could get permanent housing. I have it, everything they asked for. But every time we get near the front of the line, they shut the door. They opened the door for about 20 minutes ago and said they're not servicing anyone else today, 77-year-old Joyce Burnett said. Probably only got a handful of whatever they've got that they're handing out. These people need help, and they are looking for help, and their politician comes down and says, yep, go home. Times reporter Connor Sheets said that he was then rebuffed by Waters during a phone call and warned, you'll hurt yourself in the community if you publish the account, this story that I'm reading right here. She also dismissed specific questions on the incident as a bunch of rumors. All right, but we just watched the video, so we know that's not a bunch of rumors. You'll hurt yourself in the community. I don't want you to start trying to write it. You won't understand it. Interesting. So what wouldn't we understand about this story? Your event went wildly sideways. More people showed up than you could handle. People got upset, and then you told them to go home. So what is there about that it's hard to understand? I don't really know. The call was reportedly cut short after about 5 minutes. Yeah, I don't have anything more to say to you. Click. That's how those go, right? California cities have been gripped by a crisis of homelessness in recent years. The state's most recent count found that 161,000 people slept without a roof over their heads in California on any given night, though the figure has not been updated in more than 2 years since January 2020, because it's been so hard to get those point-in-time counts that are normally done to figure out what the population is. And just most cities haven't done those. And that's because of the whole coronavirus thing. The Democrat-run state has poured billions of dollars into attempts to solve the crisis, but has been criticized for inefficiently using taxpayer money to do so. This next paragraph here. This one really gets me. Late last month, it was found that a $1.2 billion program aimed at building modest units for people living on the streets was projected to spend up to $837,000 to house one person. $837,000. Now, people want to say, well, you get one of those little backyard sheds. Those only cost like 10 grand. You can put them together for probably way less than that. But that's not really what they're talking about. They're talking about bringing in all the wraparound services, all of the stuff that goes into, coming up with this housing. All of that stuff is added into that $837,000. Still, $837,000. Having all the systems in place, having all the personnel in place, $837,000 is what it comes down to per living structure per person. Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti defended the program on Twitter, claiming it is producing more units than promised at a lower cost than expected. Well, if that's the case, what would the wildly over budget program look like? $9.50 per unit, something like that. Hey, we're under budget. Yeah, but the budget was wildly expensive to begin with. It's not saying a lot, right? Although in fighting the homeless process in California, you got to take whatever you got because it's basically out of control. In June last year, Garcetti allocated nearly $1 billion in his city's $11.2 billion budget to fighting homelessness. And you're seeing this all across the country in cities that have basically let their homelessness issue just go. And during the pandemic, we let a lot of things go. We let crime kind of go. We let people out of jails. We let people put up their tents wherever they wanted, and we supported them. And now we're at a point where, we didn't see all the crime and drugs and whatnot coming out of the homeless encampment. So we need to quash that a little bit. We need to clean up our streets. We need to clean up our downtown core so we can have those businesses go back after we told everybody to go home for 15 days to flatten the curve. So we've got all this stuff going on. And now homelessness is at kind of the top of the chart as far as, all right, this doesn't look good. What can we do to make the optics look a little bit better here? Now let's just start cleaning them out. Let's just start sweeping all these homeless encampments. And that is one thing. You're just going to have to keep doing it. You're going to have to keep doing it. Clean up, move, clean up, move. That's the way this game is going to be played until, some folks are talking about, all right, you can have housing, but here, you got to be clean. You got to have a job, work with people to get to a point where their lives can get better. Because you just put a roof over their head. I do not agree with the housing first part of it. Just getting somebody a roof over their head, they're going to take whatever issues they've got into that house and keep going unless there's some kind of incentive for them to make their lives better and to become better producing citizens of society instead of being an $837,000 suck of resources for one house. You got to come up with programs where people they're working on their whatever addiction they've got going, whether it's alcohol or drugs, and then whatever mental issues they've got going on. Because you just spend enough time in the areas where the homelessness are and you realize, okay, you got a lot of people here they shouldn't be here, not only because it's not safe, but because they just don't have the rational cognitive thinking to be able to live out there. And that's literally where we're putting them. So I put a lot of this on the city's faults for just basically letting people live the way that they live. And especially in a city like Seattle or Portland or LA or San Francisco, they're all prime examples. And you know what? I have seen, and I've seen a lot of the comments that you guys make, a lot of the comments that, hey, at least New York does something. New York does seem to have better protocol as far as the homelessness goes. They don't let people live in these big community tent type environments. It's more individual. And so I think they keep a lid on it a little bit better as far as that goes. Whether or not that really helps people out or not, I'm not sure. But the vast majority of people in New York City, they live in shelters. They don't live in tents on the side of the road where, 4 of them were killed last week down in Salem, Oregon, when a DUI driver launched their vehicle into a tent and people got killed. So trying to get people off of the busy roads, trying to get people off the underpaths. But man, we've come this far. can we really do much of an impact as far as getting back to where we once were, which was not these areas, not just overrun with homelessness? I don't know. It's a tough one for me because I don't see anybody with these genius plans, and I'm not sure that the little tiny structures, the backyard shed where they put a whole bunch of these backyard sheds in a community. We've got, I think, maybe 15 of them in Washington. All right, that is a way to handle this, and that is a way to interim, but get people. But is anybody getting sober? Is anybody getting a job? Is anybody getting their mental issues worked on? Maybe identified to the point of, you don't belong in the streets or you don't belong in society either because you got something really tweaked in your head. We need to get those folks help, and having them just live on their own in one of these tiny shelters, that's not really going to do it, in my opinion. So just a big, massive, train wreck of a scenario, billions of dollars going to funding, and we're funding programs that don't necessarily work. And yet got to do something, got to try something. I don't have any great hope in the near future. Because I think if this is just one of those issues, it's going to take years and years and years to work our way out of. So in the meantime, you're going to have these situations come up. We've got a politician that just sticks their foot in their mouth. I mean, that was a good one. So Waters introduced a legislating package aimed at tackling homelessness nationwide last summer. How has that done? It includes $600 billion towards building equitable, affordable, and accessible housing infrastructure, as well as dedicating $100 billion toward down payment and other financial assistance for first-generation homebuyers to purchase their first home in an effort to reduce racial inequalities in wealth and home ownership. As things have gotten more expensive, I think any of those first-time homebuyer programs, those are going to be impacted because it just takes so much to afford a home right now that's not just BIPOC communities. It's all young people who haven't had a long period of working in the workforce to build up, the reserves, the financial reserves to be in a position to put 20% down on a house or even 3.5% down on a house in an FHA deal. And so housing to me right now is, okay, that's a long-term project you're going to have to work on, whether you can get people who can actually buy housing. I'm not convinced that's the deal. You're going to have to provide some kind of housing, but it's got to be also dependent upon these folks getting the help that they need, because otherwise you're basically building your own stripped down version of, psychiatric ward or detox clinic without all the personnel. Hey, go in here and magically things will get better. I mean, your little tiny house, all the addiction issues and whatever else you've got going on, you just bring those right in there. And now you've got a, clean place that you can kind of lock up, put your stuff in and do your drugs. So does that really help out folks long-term where they need to get going? No, it doesn't. But at this point in time, we're just kind of literally trying whatever comes to the surface and spending a bunch of money and trying to get some forward positive motion, but it doesn't seem to be working. And in the housing issues here, these folks were going after Section 8 housing vouchers, which would allow them to literally get, if they can find a landlord who will take said Section 8 housing vouchers. I don't know of anybody in this market who's going to take a Section 8 like new here in Seattle or Bellevue. And a lot of that's because our rental pool is so expensive now. They're just not going to take Section 8. And it's not because, those folks aren't worthy or those folks aren't, qualified. They probably are. But it's a situation where if you can take somebody who's much higher paying and isn't subsidized by the government, that's what you're going to do. And all these other programs that have constricted the amount of housing over the last couple of years, those have forced a situation where you've got very few landlords now. And with the returns on real estate, I don't blame a lot of big companies for amping up their portfolio of housing, which further takes more, rental pools out of the control of the small mom and pop and puts it in a big corporation. And they're the ones that are going to be, owning a lot of this rental pool because they're getting good returns because real estate's going up. The market's going up. That's just how this goes in those markets. So affordable housing, yeah, good luck with that. I haven't really seen much works in the way of how this goes. I just see the ongoing sweeps. And I know, yeah, we want to get our streets cleaned up. Is that the way to do it? Man, I don't have a solution for a lot of this because these issues are so complex. And a lot of people want to say, just clean up the streets, okay? But those folks, if they're not going to housing somewhere, they're still going to be out on the streets doing their same thing. So you're just kind of pushing people around. And that's the crux that we're at right now, the optics of the homeowner, of the homelessness situation. Oh, it's not a good look. Need to do something about that. All right, let's start sweeping the encampments. And so that's literally where we sit right now. We're sweeping the encampments, don't really have much of a long-term game plan. We talk about operation whatever, and we talk about having vouchers for 20 minutes. That happens. And then guess what? Yeah, everybody's back at square one. So this is kind of where we sit right now. So the whole Maxine Waters talking about people needing to go home, that's kind of one small little micro piece of this storyline. The greater storyline is we don't have a real solid solution, and the midterm elections are coming up, and we're doing some cleanup, but it's a little too late in my opinion. But I suspect we're just going to keep seeing this. Hey, look what we did! We cleaned up that street. Yeah, they all went over there. That's literally, I think, what we're going to see a lot of over the next few months before the midterms. Okay, that's it for me. Thanks so much for being here. We will catch up with you soon. Until then, stay safe. We'll talk again. Bye for now.